The terror Genghis Khan unleashed across Asia did not begin on the battlefield, and it did not start with an empire. It began in a quiet tent, in the flicker of a dying candle, where one woman made a choice that would shake the world's most feared conqueror. The air inside is thick with incense, sweat, and silent dread. A young princess, her breath sharp and controlled, lies beside a man worshipped by armies and feared by kingdoms. Tonight, she is not a prize. Tonight, she is a weapon. Her fingers close around a cold piece of metal hidden beneath her pillow. Outside, a storm howls across the steppe, swallowing the sound of her trembling breath. This Tangut princess, forced into Genghis Khan's camp, beaten into obedience, and used like thousands before her, has waited years for this moment. Her family had been burned alive. Her people crushed. Her dignity ripped away night after night. But she endured. She learned. She watched. And now, with the blade catching the faint glow of candlelight, she prepares to do what no army ever could. Within seconds, the greatest conqueror in human history will realize that his legacy of domination comes with a price. The man who boasted command over 7,000 women, who built an empire through orchestrated violence, is about to face judgment from someone he believed was powerless. History will later shape this moment into legend, but the screams that sliced through the storm that night were terrifyingly real. But how did the world reach this point? How did one man's personal nightmare evolve into the largest campaign of sexual violence ever recorded? Why did a single kidnapping lead to a brutal dynasty of assault so massive that geneticists estimate over 16 million people today carry the mark of Genghis Khan? To understand this monstrous chain of events, we must turn back the clock, 25 years before that fateful night, back to a woman named Borte, and a kidnapping that shaped the destiny of entire civilizations. In 1184, Genghis Khan was not yet the ruler the world fears. He was simply Temujin, a struggling chieftain fighting to survive the ruthless tribal politics of the Mongolian steppe. He and Borte had married young, a union meant to secure alliances and stabilize their fragile clan. But peace never lasted long on the steppe. The Merkit tribe, nursing an old grudge against Temujin's father, struck at dawn. 30 riders thundered into the camp. Temujin fled on horseback, desperate to survive, leaving his new wife behind. This single moment, his helplessness, his flight, scarred him in ways the world would come to know far too well. Borte was dragged into Merkit territory and handed over to a warrior named Chilger, who claimed her as plunder. She remained in captivity for 8 agonizing months. What she endured was never fully written in the chronicles, they preferred clean summaries, not unbearable truths. But when Temujin finally rescued her with the help of his blood brother Jamuka, her body told the story her voice never could. She was pregnant. The child, Joki, would carry suspicion for the rest of his life. Even his name, meaning, the guest, was a whispered reminder of his uncertain origins. Temujin raised him publicly as his own, but doubt clung to him like a shadow. At night, Temujin would study Joki's face, searching for Merkit traits, replaying the torture Borte had endured. The rescue changed something deep inside him. Borte had survived, but in Mongol culture, she carried a shame she never asked for. Every sideways glance, every whispered rumor about Joki tore at Temujin's soul. The humiliation of losing her, the horror of what she suffered, and the mark it left on his family became a wound that never healed. And then something inside Temujin hardened. He vowed he would never flee again. Never be powerless again. Never lose control again. The Merkits were the first to pay. Not just the attackers. Not just the warriors. The entire tribe, women, children, elders, was targeted with a brutality that shocked even seasoned steppe fighters. But for Temujin, death alone was not justice. He wanted them to hurt the way Borte had hurt. He wanted them to drown in shame the way his family had been forced to. That became his template for every conquest. His trauma evolved into policy. His personal vendetta became law. Women were no longer seen as people, they were currency, punishment, and symbols of complete domination. He could not undo Borte's suffering. So he made the world suffer instead. He could not erase 8 months of captivity. So he stole generations from his enemies. He could not silence the whispers about Joki. So he forced entire nations to carry his bloodline. This is how one man's deepest wound turned into a strategy that reshaped continents. This is how trauma became empire. Modern psychologists call what happened to Temujin trauma inversion. His childhood wounds turned into a system of cruelty that consumed entire civilizations. In trying to overcome his own suffering, he became the architect of the largest sexual assault network in history. Borte's rescue marked the shift. Women stopped being people, they became tools, symbols, instruments of conquest. Pregnancy became a weapon, rewriting the future of entire peoples with Mongol blood. To carry this out, Temujin built a bureaucracy. Random violence wasn't enough. Soldiers were trained not only in war, but in managing human lives. His postal system doubled as a network of sexual slavery, beginning with 7,000 women in his personal household. Administrators ranked them on a 100-point scale based on beauty, age, virginity, and lineage. Scores determined fate, the highest went to the Khan, others to generals or officers, and below 60 were condemned to brothel camps, mobile torture chambers maintained like military equipment. Ethnicity was catalogued: Chinese, Persian, Russian, Tangut, different qualities, treated as inventory. Pregnant women were tracked, children documented. Higher-ranked captives lived in luxurious, heavily guarded quarters, but with no freedom. Lower-ranked women endured dozens of assaults a day, until their bodies failed. Policy, not chaos, governed the violence. After the Tatars fell, every woman was evaluated and assigned. Men and boys were killed or spared selectively, women distributed according to rank and perceived beauty. Families were torn apart, trauma enforced through isolation. Tatar bloodlines were absorbed into the Mongol genetic pool, a deliberate strategy of ethnic erasure confirmed by modern DNA studies. Each conquest refined the system. Cities fell, women were selected, stripped, inspected, and ranked. Ages 8 to 35 were considered valuable, others faced execution. Some women died, some were traded, most endured systematic exploitation. Sexual violence became strategy, psychological warfare, and ethnic engineering, an empire built not just on conquest, but on controlling bodies and rewriting bloodlines. Being selected never meant safety. It meant entering a system designed to crush women completely. Those who scored highest were taken by powerful commanders, while others were forced into groups and assigned like property. The process itself was humiliation. Women were made to walk, turn, and stand still while soldiers mocked them. Mothers were separated from daughters. Sisters were pulled apart without explanation. No one understood the rules, because the confusion was intentional. Fear and uncertainty made resistance impossible. Those not chosen often met immediate death, while others were handed to the lowest ranks for unimaginable treatment. The ones selected faced their own nightmare, sorted, transported, and controlled with chilling organization. Attempts to resist or escape were punished not just individually, but collectively, ensuring obedience through terror. One young princess, only 17, was pushed into this system and carried a hidden blade, knowing she had nothing left to lose. Her defiance would shape everything that followed. The Mongols had perfected psychological terror, forcing parents into impossible choices, making every act of mercy a source of suffering. Families became instruments of control, children were used to manipulate mothers, and mothers to control daughters. Amid this horror, Princess Gerbil of the Tangut Kingdom witnessed the destruction of everything she loved. At 19, she was dragged into Genghis Khan's court, her royal blood and courage marking her as valuable, but survival demanded patience, cunning, and restraint. She learned the rhythms of the Khan's court, memorized guard shifts, and observed his weaknesses. Every interaction was a test, every movement a rehearsal for revenge. On a stormy night, when opportunity and chaos aligned, Gerbil struck. The Khan, terror of continents, fell to a single hidden dagger. In that moment, the empire's instrument of sexual terror confronted its first vulnerability. Though the Mongol system of slavery and violence persisted, Gerbil's act sent a message: absolute power could be challenged. Generations later, the scars of Mongol oppression remained, cultures adapted, societies reshaped, and architecture fortified to protect women, but one courageous act proved that even the darkest systems are not invincible.